Jennifer, let me start with this big meeting coming up. We've been talking about this now for a while, but it's going to happen tomorrow. Justin Trudeau and members of his caucus, some of the ones who spoke out when he was away, I don't know, is it 20? Is it 30? Is it more or less? We don't know. But what we do know is his future may be decided in this meeting or not.
I don't think it will be decided in this meeting. I think more likely those that signed the letter, their futures will be decided in this meeting, because right now we don't know, as you mentioned, Aaron, we don't know how many people signed it. We know that one MP that signed it had mentioned that the names had flowed over to a second page. But well, you have to look at it into context. Those letters, the letter or the documents or whatever it is that nobody has seen, which that's good. I mean, I suppose, but they've signed it. They can't unsign it now. Meanwhile, what else has happened since then? It was announced that 4 cabinet ministers wouldn't be running again. Now, surely the Prime Minister or the PMO knew that they wouldn't be running again. They've been going around all summer trying to find out. So basically, what we saw today was, a complete, full cabinet support for the Prime Minister. So there was a cabinet meeting today, which is, the members of cabinet, the ministers and the Prime Minister, and then the caucus meeting, which is all of the Liberal members of Parliament, tomorrow. So that's the meeting that you're alluding to, and it's apparently backbench MPs that have signed this document. But what's going to happen, because of the 4 cabinet ministers that won't be running, what's been announced is there's going to be an imminent cabinet shuffle. So pretty much those people that signed that letter probably won't get promoted to cabinet anytime in the very near future. However, those cabinet members that came out, in full support, I mean, it wasn't over the top, to give them credit, but they may get a promotion in the next couple of weeks. So you never know what's going to happen.
Okay, so let's talk about what happened in New Brunswick last night. A Liberal government winning, surprising a lot of people there. Blaine Higgs no longer the PM. What I find interesting was 2 things. Number one, Susan Holt, who is now going to be the new provincial premier there, actually, she's a Liberal, right? A provincial Liberal there, actually trying to distance herself from Justin Trudeau and the federal Liberals. Is that surprising?
Well, it's not in a context, because the thing is that I think a lot of people have to remember now. I'm speaking as the former Vice President English of the Liberal Party of Canada, Quebec wing. So English, Quebec, right? Liberal. Can you imagine the heat that I used to take from Quebec about the Quebec Liberal Party, because people didn't understand that they weren't the same party? And I would have to explain, look, our party's divorced in 1957. And in most of the federal Liberal Party, or Team Trudeau, as it really could be aptly called now, they don't have provincial wings. So it's not disloyal or unwise, because her party has nothing to do. It's called the Liberal Party. I mean, they may share members in some ways, but it could be. I don't know how it works in New Brunswick. I don't know how close they are with the feds, but it could be something like in Quebec, where they're very, very distant.
So, okay, distancing yourself from the federal Liberals, or from Justin Trudeau in this case, and then kind of the icing on the cake here kind of came out of nowhere. Mark Carney, who yesterday, I guess, let it be known he wants to get elected somewhere. He wants to get involved in politics. Sends a note to Susan Holt, the new PM, or the new Prime Minister in New Brunswick, and it says the following: looking forward to working with you on bold, positive ideas for New Brunswick's future and for an even better Canada, unquote. Sounds like a guy who's in it to win it, doesn't it?
It does, and I'm interested in the MP for Beaches, York and Toronto, which is it's kind of a funky, neat riding. He's got a podcast apparently, and it's been used as a platform recently for a couple of announcements. And he announced, I guess it was on Friday, I guess this is when it comes out, the podcast, that it was in the works that he was putting his elected future into work. Now, because a lot of people might not be running, he'll have plenty of ridings to run in. It's the question is, where's he going to run? You'd want to run somewhere where it would be, relatively safe. So he'll have to find somewhere to run. Should be very interesting.
So if you were placing money, betting, I think I've asked you this once before. Mark Carney, great reputation, knows the financial files backwards and forwards. Everyone understands that. But I heard someone today make the comparison. He's kind of like the new Michael Ignatieff, and we all know how that turned out.
Well, I don't think he's quite like the new Michael Ignatieff. Michael Ignatieff was around when I was around, when we were, when we ended up in third place after the election of 2011. And, from the leadership, which I was heavily involved in organizing for Ken Dryden. I watched Michael Ignatieff come into our party, and I wouldn't compare anybody to Michael Ignatieff. But, I mean, it could be, and I say this with all respect to academics, like the sort of egghead, academic type of thing. But I think he's got more personality, and I don't think he's quite as haughty and arrogant as Michael Ignatieff is. I think he'd be a lot better with the media than Mr. Ignatieff was. I know Mr. Ignatieff angered a lot of people at the studio that you're sitting in right now with his behavior. So I don't think that Mr. Carney would be quite that detrimental to the party.
Okay, which leaves us our final person to discuss who apparently want the job, and that's Christy Clark, former BC Premier. Again, coming out and making it pretty obvious yesterday that, I'm interested if and when Justin Trudeau decides he wants to leave. How significant an entrance is this?
Well, it's very significant, and it did kind of come out of the blue, but there was an article, a great article in La Presse this morning, and it was basically like the waiting room is growing. And so I guess maybe her activities, because she was at an OLP, an Ontario Liberal Convention. Now, if there's one provincial Liberal Party that could be quite close to the federal, it is the Ontario Liberal Party. Like I mentioned last week, the riding boundaries are the same provincially and federal there. They were for many years. So Christy Clark was a keynote speaker, had a suite there, which is something that you do if you're running for leadership. Apparently she was out hugging and glad-handing at the Calgary Stampede. The same thing. This is not a usual thing for a BC leader to do unless you're trying to run for a federal job. Now, we know she's not, even though she is definitely, BC Liberals could be essentially conservative party. So she's quite conservative. Her ex-husband was Mark Marrison, who was a prominent BC organizer for Paul Martin back in the day. So they're on, the right lean. They're not married anymore, but on the right-leaning side of the Liberal Party. So interesting. I mean, it should bring a lot of interesting discussions. I know, she's been very highly critical of the Trudeau Liberals. So we'll see. I mean, it's kind of hard to be critical of a party and then go in and try to lead it, because you want to get the members behind you. And when the members have seen you sort of casting stones at the party, and possibly, leading to an election loss or whatever it is, they might not be favorable to that. So people who want to lead, even if they want to wait until the current prime minister is ready to take his leave, they should keep their powder dry and try to not go too critical, because they're not going to be able to attract members that way.
All right. Last thing I want to touch on is something actually happening here in municipal politics in Montreal. So we know that Ensemble Montréal, the opposition at City Hall, basically telling people, let's find out anybody want to run for leadership, because, there is going to be a new leader. Aref Salem will not be leading that party into the next election. And then today, the name of a gentleman. So he's a Moroccan-born entrepreneur. And it says he could become the first gay and diverse mayor ever of Montreal, because he is in the running now in the Ensemble Montréal leadership race. And I'm curious what you thought. Look, we're not that far away. We're roughly a year away from a municipal election.
We are
here,
roughly
right?
a year. Not even. We're less than a year away. Their race is very, very short. So basically, I'll be as brief as I can and as concise as I can, because I had asked the party to simplify their rules for the average Montrealer who would be interested, because it was, a 30-page document. So, 200 members over 10 boroughs, 100 of the members have to be members. The cutoff date for the new membership was September 16th. The electoral list cutoff is January 26th, and I think their vote is either the 16th or the 26th of February. So, it's coming very, very quickly. I read a lot about this candidate, and he signed up a lot of members. I mean, he seems to have really good energy. He's recognizing he's got his I don't know this person at all. I'm going to look into seeing more about him, because I'm very interested in municipal affairs, obviously. But in terms of their requirements for their leadership, he's exceeded what they have. So, good. You have somebody signing up members and talking about real issues. I mean, if any of your listeners or you have been in the Village lately, I mean, it's pretty, even in the daylight. And he's got his business down on St. Catherine East, and he's talking about real issues, and it's important that we talk about real issues. And, maybe not so much about putting in new bike paths and this and that and the other thing. So look, let's hope that this starts the flurry of candidacies for the leadership of Ensemble Montréal.
Look, last time around, if we go back, we had Balarama Holness involved in this thing. I remember talking to him on a couple of occasions. He's like long gone. I don't even know if he lives here anymore. I think he may be in Toronto. But do you see any other candidate, like someone who's been kind of poking around at the edges, who you think might be a suitable contender? Someone to run against Valerie Plante? Anybody? Any names?
Well, I gave an interview last week with a print publication, and what I said is, I'll say the same thing here. Anybody that wants to run needs to understand Montreal. It's 103 elections. It's not the mayoral race. The mayor has to win on those 103 ballots. Therefore, has to lead a party. It's a lot easier. So if you think that you're going to just show up and be like what Mr. Coderre did, show up and everybody sees you downtown, but you're not in Rosemount or you're not in Ile-Bizarre or you're not in Lachine, you have to be everywhere, and Montreal is huge in terms of the electoral map, and I'm not joking, 103 elections on election day. And anybody that doesn't understand that shouldn't be running for the mayor of Montreal, because that's somebody who understands that is the only way that they're going to be able to beat Valerie Plante in Projet Montréal.
So I would just ask, as we wrap up, anybody that you have seen, even within the last 6 months, a year, who you think could be that person to put a party together and run efficiently against her?
I have actually. It's been the reverse. I had seen that I thought were interesting back in the winter. And in the intervening months, they've disqualified themselves. In my personal mind, because I'm an organizer, right? And I know how what it takes to win an election in Montreal. And I'm like, okay, well, that's serious candidacy. But I am keeping my eyes open, so we will not.
Okay.
We will be definitely talking about this again.